Italo Balbo and the Grand Council of Fascism has led us towards Greater Italy. We have defeated the French, Greeks and captured Egypt. But the Allied forces have captured our colonies in the Horn of Africa, and they have naval superiority against us in the Mediterranean Sea. But worst of all, the Allies have complete air superiority. This has led to the Spanish front staying in a complete stalemate. A month ago we managed to push the Allies out of the Levant. So now we have some free divisions that we could use to expand our empire even more. But the military has concluded that before we continue with expanding, we first have to clear up Iberia. And Balbo agrees. We started with a small attack on the British occupied city of Alicante. At first it went well, but then the British launched a second naval invasion on Murica and managed to halt our offensive. The attack we tried didn't go so well, but we have an ace up our sleeve. Our new infantry divisions with more firepower than any of our other. But before they could reach Murica, the British were now naval invading Barcelona again. So we did what we do best, capture Barcelona. We are now finally able to push the Portuguese and British back. The first thing we did was to capture and encircle Murica and Alicante. After that we tried the second attack towards the Spanish port city of Malaga. But once we began attacking, we noticed it was a trap. The British were trying to encircle us. Luckily, we managed to retreat in the last minute. Our offensives in Spain haven't gone well, and they won't. All because the horrible infrastructure and the Spanish just being incompetent. So instead, we will begin to capture some islands. We began with naval invading Malta. After setting up our air in the region and astonishing 500 naval bombers, we began the invasion. Sadly, this didn't go either, so we switched island to Cyprus. And this time it went smooth. We landed and there were no Brits anywhere. With Cyprus captured, we will once again try to capture Malta, but only an idiot will try the same thing again. So maybe if we capture French North Africa, the British will leave Malta because of difficulty of supplying their troops. We had already managed to encircle a French offensive and now all we had to do was to clear it up. This wasn't a difficult operation because they had almost no supply and their troops were starving. After many deaths for the Allies, we began marching into Tunisia. We encircled one of their divisions and then continued towards the next supply hub. Sadly, the Americans had reached the city first and successfully defended it. With the supply hub not captured, we won't be able to continue. But we immediately continued with another offensive, trying to naval invade Tunisia instead. But as we arrived, the Americans had already set up a defense of the shore and we only managed to land in Tunis. 50,000 Italians died on the shores. But if only we hold off Tunis for long enough, we will have built a port. After 1 month, they began attacking us and after a long battle in the city, they captured it. For every win there is an equally big loss. The Allies are now back in Libya. But no worries, it's time to change. We will finally make the Italian people proud. We have done it. Malta is ours. We can now finally proclaim Greater Italy. But all is not good. The Allies are bombing all our trains and trucks so that we don't get any supply to Spain. We are building anti-air in all our states, but we can't in Spain. So we have begun developing a new fighter. Hopefully this will help. And we have also upgraded our trains to have more armor. Not much happened in the next few months, except that we are finally beginning to contest their air superiority with the help of our new invention, the jet engine, making our aircraft go up to 1000 kilometers per hour. While we waited for our air force to do their thing, the biggest part of the Allied navy had left the Mediterranean Sea after we had managed to sunken 1000 of their ships. So we launched a naval invasion to recapture the Balearic Islands. There were no British divisions on the main two islands, so we easily managed to capture them, but the third we didn't manage. So we tried again, but with 5 times the amount of divisions. And this time we landed. Our troops are well enough trained to try a naval invasion of Tunis again. This time we will only try to land on the port, so if we fail at least some will survive. We launched our invasion and at first it seemed like we were going to win, but then more Americans arrived. So the invasion sadly failed. Instead, we will try to attack from Libya. The Allies had low supply, so we broke through and encircled a part of their divisions. Once we had broken through, we kept up the momentum until we arrived to the city of Sfax, which had a supply hub. After resting some time and sending over 3 new bicycle divisions, we renewed our offensive. We broke through again, and after some time we had captured all of Tunisia. After that, we continued into Algeria. Once we reached the outskirts of Algiers, we got stopped because of low supply. But this is no big problem because we are finally ready to retry offensives in Spain. We have shot down so many allied planes that we have supply again. We began with our first offensive to the city of Burgos. It took some time to break through, but soon we had reached the city. This is the first offensive that has gone exactly as planned in Spain. So it's finally time to kick the Portuguese back. We have done it! 5 years after the Spanish declaration of war on the Portuguese, we have pushed them back. It's now finally time to secure Western Europe once and for all. The Allied forces were already tired after our unexpected victory in Spain. This meant we could simply continue the winning streak and capture Lisbon after splitting Portugal in two. Before we turned to their new capital in Porto, we first destroyed their southern forces. After an easy victory, we finally turned north. The Allies were holding on better than we thought they would, but after applying more pressure, we captured Porto, their only escape. We have done it! All of Western Europe is now under our control. We have also captured Gibraltar, but to be able to pass our ships through the Gibraltar Straits, we need to capture the other side too. Why we need to get our ships out of the Mediterranean Sea will be a pleasant surprise for the British. The Battle of the Gibraltar Straits begun, and after some days we had managed to kick the Americans back. We now possessed full control over the straits. But we aren't done in Africa yet. Our troops continued towards the next port of Casablanca. Once we had captured the port, this meant the Allied troops in Algeria could no longer receive any supply. To sow even more confusion, we landed a second naval invasion in Oran. Now all that is left to do is to crush them. We captured the last major city in Algeria and just continued the massacre. Some weeks later we had kicked them out of northern Africa and the Mediterranean Sea now fully belongs to us. Throughout this whole war, we and our allies have killed almost 15 million allied soldiers. But the war is far from over. As I hinted earlier, we will try to naval invade the UK. We have successfully managed to flee with our navy out of the Mediterranean Sea and we are now stationed in Brest. To scout where would be best to land with our troops, we sent out our submarine. In conclusion, the British have only defenses in eastern England. This should be enough, right? So we set up our air force and navy. We managed to get exactly 50% naval superiority, which meant we could send our troops over. We landed as expected. The British and American garrisons were overwhelmed and we even managed to capture Dover. As we had also landed in Norwich, we could encircle London, and that's what we did. They made a heroic stand, but to no avail. With London captured, we continued north. We captured Wales and then finally Liverpool and Manchester. Once we had captured the two important cities, the British surrendered. We immediately sent the Americans a message to leave all of Europe and then we would begin peace talks. But they refused. They still believe that they can win this war somehow. So to show them that it's over, we will have to begin another naval invasion, but this time against Ireland, and then begin pushing down towards Ethiopia. We began with Ireland. There were no British divisions whatsoever in Belfast, so we simply landed and continued into Ireland. The Irish divisions were weak and after only 14 days we had arrived in Cork. With all their major cities captured, they surrendered. It's now finally time to capture the rest of Egypt and Ethiopia. The Americans have predicted that we will attack in Egypt, so they have sent massive reinforcements to that front. But what they hadn't predicted was a naval invasion behind their lines. Once we had landed, we rushed towards the Sahara Desert so that the Allied troops in the north would become encircled. As this was a total surprise for the Allies, we managed to encircle them. In the encirclement were about 170,000 Allied troops that we successfully managed to capture or kill. Now all we have to do is to continue down south. But before we did, we sent another message to the Americans, that if they conditionally surrendered, we will have mercy on their African divisions. And they accepted. After almost 8 years of constant war, we are finally at peace again. The Americans gave us back our African colonies and we got to keep the British Isles. But it is not smart to occupy everything for ourselves. So it's time to create our own puppet empire. One in Ireland and one in the UK. We created one in France and Switzerland, but gave away Alsace and Belgium to the Germans. And that's it. But we have one thing left to clean up, the Balkans. We traded away Serbia in return for Herzegovina, Montenegro and Macedonia. Long live Balbo and long live the greater Italian Empire. We have successfully cemented our place in European history. Thanks so much for watching and see you in the next video.